But we begin, as we always do, with the big story. It is championship caliber. The Big Ten has announced the following future championship event locations. The next two women's basketball tournaments will move to Minneapolis. The 2024 men's tournament will also head to the Twin Cities after Chicago plays host in 2023. And the football championships game partnership with the city of Indianapolis has been extended 2 more years through the 2024 title tilt. Dave Revson has more with the commissioner.
Rick, thanks, and pleased to have the commissioner here on an exciting day as we look ahead to some big events coming up down the line here in the Big Ten. Let's start with the process first. I know that the conference solicited bids from potential host cities. Give us a sense of how that worked.
Yeah, Dave, we had a very detailed process from an RFP standpoint, as you said, to solicit bids. We wanted to make sure that we gathered all the information from the cities who were interested. We've been blessed with some incredible, not only cities, but venues in our Big Ten footprint. Once that information was gathered, we were able to process that through our institutions, led by our athletic directors and other key members on campus, and ultimately through the chancellors and presidents level, because that's where the decision is made. But we as the conference office serve as the conduit between the interested parties to gather the information, to go through the detailed steps, and then take it to a vote.
What differentiates these bids? In other words, what separated the places that you chose?
Yeah, there's a list of things that we have to look at. The venue, the financial details, how they've hosted events, in the past, the number of hotels, airports, the ingress and egress. Because at the end of the day, we want this experience to be a very qualitative and positive experience for our fans, our student athletes, our coaches, and everyone from our campuses. So it's really important to make sure that we gather all that information and be able to spread these opportunities around within the Big Ten.
So that's the how. Let's look a little bit at the what, kind of what the results were, and Rick outlined some of them. To me, probably the biggest news is you have the basketball tournament, the men's tournament for the first time going to Minneapolis. You have the women's tournament there twice, and we'll get into the differences, why it's different next year. And then the men's tournament heading to Minneapolis at the Target Center. So both of them will be there a couple years from now. Give me a sense of what stood out about the Target Center and why you felt like that was the right place to bring both these tournaments.
Well, you look at just what happened with the Women's Final Four just recently. I was able to attend those events. I mean, the crowds were incredible. The energy in Minneapolis was outstanding. The sight lines, they've done some upgrades at the Target Center. It was really a great venue. And then if you go back a couple years and even to think of the Final Four that was hosted, it was at US Bank Stadium from a men's standpoint in 2019, but still the city. The city of Minneapolis, the Twin Cities, Minneapolis and St. Paul know how to host big events. They absolutely love sports and they love basketball. And not only basketball, but both men's and women's basketball. So I'm excited to be able to have these events there. And one special thing about it is the fact that they've been a member of the Big Ten, one of the original members since 1896. So it's good. It'll be exciting. The fans are outstanding there. And on top of that, there's a major corporate community. Multiple 18 or 19 Fortune 500 companies are in the Twin Cities, and I know people are excited and will be excited about hosting us there.
This is going to be the 5th different city that will have hosted the men's tournament. Obviously, it's predominantly been in Indianapolis and Chicago, but it's been in D.C., it's been in Madison Square Garden as well. How much of that is a factor, trying to spread it out? I mean, again, I know Minneapolis had a fantastic bid here. Is the notion of trying to visit different venues throughout the years, or was this just simply a function of, hey, Minneapolis is the best place?
It really is a combination. Minneapolis stood up during this bid process, but one of the things that's important, we need to be mindful of the Big Ten footprint and the people who are really interested in it. I mean, think about Indianapolis, this year for the men's and women's tournament. I was able to go to all of those games there. Just the energy in the city, the economic value that it brings to the city, all that it does to showcase the city. And so we want to be proud of it. Minneapolis is a key city in our Big Ten footprint with the University of Minnesota there. Basketball is great, the fans are great, and you think of some of the iconic players on both from a men's and women's standpoint. You know, Lindsay Whalen and Maya Moore, but Kevin Garnett and Flip Saunders, but all the different things that have been able to go on in the Twin Cities. So we're excited about going to Minneapolis there, and we're excited about having the men's tournament in Chicago.
It is important to point out, Indy did not bid, I know, on those 2 years because they already had some other events going on in town. And then I do want to clarify on Chicago. We already knew it was going to be in Chicago next year, correct? Because in 21, Chicago was supposed to host, and instead it went into the bubble in Indy, and Chicago was then promised having it in 23. So I just want to clear up there that's the reason the two are separated next year, correct?
Correct. And you know, it was interesting. Our office worked with Mayor Lightfoot and her office to make sure that when we did flip, Indianapolis was able to host the men's tournament in 21. We made a promise then to be able to bring the men's tournament back to Chicago in 23. So that is the reason and rationale that for 23, the men's tournament will be in Chicago, the women's tournament will be in Minneapolis, and then for 24, both the men's and women's tournaments will be in Minneapolis. But that is the rationale. We're excited about hosting the tournament, you know, in Chicago. Again, another great venue, another great city, and another place that loves basketball. So we're excited to be here in Chicago for the 23 men's tournament.
Let's go to the football game. And Indy is the only city that has ever hosted it. And then here today announcing 2 more years. We already knew it would be in Indy this coming season. So now 3 years going forward. Indy has been an unbelievable host for this event. Anyone who's been there knows how fabulous it is. Is there a thought that at some point it might go elsewhere, or is Indy just the perfect host for the football game?
Indy has been a perfect host up to this point. As you said, the venue is outstanding. Just the love and appreciation for football in Indianapolis, for the Big Ten, and for our football championship game. But one of the reasons that we wanted to make sure that we extended it for 2 years, that gives some consistency. Like you said, it's been the venue that we've hosted our football championship game. And now we know for the next 3 years, we have this year in 22 and then 23 and 24. But as we start evolving our conference and doing what's in the best interest of our schools and our student athletes and also our business partners, we'll always evaluate that. So I'm proud and I'm happy. I love Indianapolis as a city. The partnership there has been incredible. And there's no reason to think that it won't continue. But that being said, there are other venues in our footprint that we'll evaluate once we get beyond the 24 championship game.
It's an amazing host city. Were there, without specifying where, were there other bids for the football game?
Yeah, absolutely. And so there are other cities, and I think what people are starting to realize is the success that Indianapolis, you know, has had, the energy that it brings to the city, the panache, all those different things. And now with the basketball tournament moving around, I think, you know, other individuals, other cities within our footprint will express interest. And so we want to make sure that we keep it fresh. We build these relationships and partnerships. We honor the history and the tradition of the Big Ten Conference. We provide an environment, an educational environment for our student athletes to go to different places. We build these business relationships, and it's a way to our fans to say thank you for being so supportive of so many years, and it gives people a chance to really travel around and see different things.
Do you see this as a pretty typical template going forward here?
Yes.
In other words, announcing maybe a couple years at a time, this is where we're going?
Yeah, I really do think, I just think just the way things have changed just in time, whether it's in the media, you know, business or championship games, you know, it's just, things are changing. And so I think it's important to get some consistency in place so people can plan ahead, and 2 or 3 years in advance is a good period. But also I think we need to make sure that we keep our eyes and ears open and do things that are cutting edge. And I think look what's happening with our media days. I mean, now all of a sudden, basketball media days and football media days that used to be something that has always been important, but it was almost something that just happened and to get on to the season. But now I think we have a unique opportunity, even based upon last year, to really turn it into an event that creates that buzz with our fans and provides our fans with an opportunity to really soak in more Big Ten football and basketball and other sports.
Speaking of which, we look forward to Big Ten Media Days coming up late July in Indy this year. And it was phenomenal for both. I just think the notion of being in the venue where the event's going to be held, I think that was special for the student athletes, and certainly for basketball, having the men and the women together.
That was amazing. The feedback I've received from not only our student athletes, but also our coaches. A lot of our student athletes had not been in a professional football, venue yet. But to be able to have it there and know that that's where the championship is going to be, and even the national championship, at different times in their careers, it really gives it, something special. And then to be able to have the men's and women's basketball media days together. So we have some unique ideas that we're always working on to be able to provide access to our fans and also to grow the experience from a student-athlete standpoint. We'll be building that relationship with the corporate and business community in all these different cities. So I'm looking forward to it. We have a great staff who's worked incredibly hard to make this happen. So today is a really special day, and I look forward to being back in Indianapolis this year for our football championship game, and then to be in Chicago for our men's basketball tournament, and then back in Minneapolis for our women's tournament.
That should be fabulous. Thanks so much for taking the time to share the process with us. And again, tons to look forward to.
Right.
Commissioner Warren, thanks a lot.
Dave, thank you very much.
Rick.
It is a good time to play tennis for The Ohio State University. The men's team ranks second in the country, 22-2 overall, unbeaten in conference comp. Women just outside the top 10 nationally at number 11. They've won 14 of their last 15 matches, including 9 straight inside the Big Ten. You now have that knowledge, and you now have the chance to hear from Ohio State tennis director Ty Tucker, who's kind enough to join us today on Big Ten Today. Ty, it is a long season. We know it has been a grind, but your team, the men's team, we start coming off a weekend sweep. You had Michigan State, then Michigan. How sweet was that sweep, specifically the win over Michigan, especially with what took place about a month ago?
It was as good as it gets. I mean, anytime you can beat Michigan in anything and you're in Columbus, Ohio, it's a big deal. And their tennis team is, on both sides, the men and the women are exceptional. And the men have been having a great year, knocked off number 1 TCU, who knocked us off in the semifinals of the National Indoors earlier this season in Seattle. So, we came... went to Texas A&M, played outside for the first time over spring break, beat Texas and Texas A&M, and then, rolled the dice and went straight to Ann Arbor. And guys were a little tired, but Michigan put it on us. So we play them twice in the season, and then so we were looking forward to the Big Ten match at home. That was Friday night, and fans came out, and it was a nice atmosphere, and we were able to get the win. But Michigan's right up there. I mean, they might be sitting at 7-8 in the country, but they're a legitimate top 4 program.
I know Cannon Kingsley sealed that win, and such a great reaction when he knew that he had brought home that victory. He also happens to be the player of the week in Big Ten tennis and has what has to be one of the best tennis names in history. What's his role on this team?
Cannon Kingsley's got a great name because he does have a hammer for a serve, or you'd like to say cannon, but he's darn good. Cannon's very, very competitive and wants to be a professional tennis player. So every day he does everything he can to to maximize his day. He knows it's not easy. This tennis game's a tough deal. You've got to be top 15 in America to be able to make a living. If you're 25 in America in professional tennis, you'll lose $15,000 or $20,000 a year. So he knows what he has to do, and and that's his goal and that's his dream. And every day he brings it. He hits every ball with purpose.
Ty, like in so many other sports where I think it's more known publicly, grad transfers can play a big role in tennis as well. And I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. Matej Vochel, who transferred in from Oklahoma State, has been a pretty big, important part for you guys this year as well.
He's actually not a grad transfer, but his name's Matej Vochel. And he's been great for us. Matej is embraced coming from Oklahoma State, and we always like to say the fake OSU, but he loves it in Columbus. He's a fan favorite. He's got little moves he does, and the fans seem to enjoy Matej, and Matej does a great job with the team. I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's never easy after 3 years at Oklahoma State coming to Columbus and having to make new friends. But when you can hit a serve like he hits and a backhand like he hits, you make a lot of friends within the team.
Ty, you talked about one of the stretches during the year, and there was a 2-week stretch for this team in February. You had 7 straight match wins, 5 against teams that were ranked in the top 10. And not only did you win all 5, you didn't lose a single point during that stretch. So what did that stretch tell you about this particular group?
You know, we stopped at 4. You know, there were some matches that were in the balance, so I'm not sure that we were going to win 7-0. But you know, we stopped at 4, and we were able to, you know, beat some quality teams 4-0. But you know, I knew that we were darn good at home, but we were going to have to be able to, you know, sustain it, because the final 16 of the Nationals, we were being sent to Seattle, and you know, on a neutral site, we weren't going to have the fans, and you know, we ended up in the semifinals, and against, I think we're 2 in the country right now. The rankings came out, and the women are 10. Against TCU, we were up 3-1, and they kind of turned it around on us and beat us 4-3 in the semifinals of the Nationals, so that kind of hurt. But we played a ton of tennis, and you know, then came right back and got after it with Notre Dame and Central Florida and Texas A&M and that Michigan trip that we talked about earlier. And there hasn't been much rest for these guys. You know, tennis has a different ranking system, so you get rewarded trying to play everybody in the top 10 in the country, and that's what we've done, and we've done it for the past 10 years, just trying to play everybody you can. So nothing's easy, and you know, we'll be challenged. It'll be a tough trip at Wisconsin. People don't know about tennis. You'll get there to Madison, and it'll say 54 degrees the next day, and it'll say 50% chance of rain. So you have to do an hour and a half of practicing on the outdoor courts and an hour and a half of practicing on the indoor courts, which, you know, isn't what you would draw up if you knew where you might play. And you know, that's the tricky thing about it that the Big Ten doesn't get the credit for is, you know, in the SEC conference, these guys are going outside, and they're outside no matter what, so you know where you're going to play. And, you know, there could be a 50% difference in the speed of the court by going indoor to outdoor just at the same university.
Yeah, there's so many unique aspects, and you just brought up 2 of them, the different court conditions, and also the fact that sometimes a guy could be up 6-5 in the 3rd set, and the match is unfinished, and you don't get the complete point. Where does that kind of mental approach come from when you are playing what is ultimately a team sport, but you know that individually your match always counts as long as it's finished toward that final team score?
I mean, you tell the guys, you know, the toughest thing in tennis when those things are happening is everybody has these state-of-the-art video boards nowadays. So you tell those guys to quit looking at it. But as the matches start to get tight and it's 3-1 and you're looking at guys and all the matches are in the 3rd set, I mean, guys are playing a point and then going straight to the scoreboard with their eyes trying to see, hey, are we okay? Is the guy on court 5 going to get it done? So it's, you know, just basically keep your nose down and do what you have to, because your point, everybody's point's the same point, and you can't think the guy next to you, he could have a 5-2 lead, and you know, you might lay off the gas a little thinking your match isn't going to end. But in college tennis, you can get that serve broke, and everybody gets a little bit nervous when they're serving for the match at 5-4 or 5-3, and you know, one break, it seems like a lot, but it really isn't.
All right, Ty, I know you're the head coach of the men's team, but you're the tennis director overseeing the whole program. And the women's team, as I mentioned, 14-1 in their last 15, unbeaten in the Big Ten. Where does the strength lie with Coach Melissa Schaub's team?
You know, Coach Schaub and Coach Cohen do a fantastic job. You know, the best in the business, as good as it gets. And, you know, they're hanging out at 10 in the country right now. But like I said, the ranking systems, you know, they can be a little, it rewards you if you're playing the best teams in the country. So sometimes, you know, the best teams in the country last year lose a couple people. And when you're scheduling, you do home and home with people. So you're kind of at the mercy with the team that they have coming back with the way the rankings work. But the women's tennis team at Ohio State has a legitimate chance to win a Big Ten championship this week, and also, you know, be a Final Four team. I mean, they're as good as anybody out there, and get to the Final Four, and anything can happen at the NCAA tournament.
Well, I think certainly the same thing could be said for your men's team as well. Ohio State tennis director Ty Tucker. Ty, we appreciate the time, dropping some info, some knowledge. Hope folks are now a little bit more dialed into Ohio State tennis, which is obviously in a great spot this spring. Thanks for the time.
I appreciate you.
Welcome back to Big Ten Today. Time for our big stat. The Cats are, in fact, on the rise. Northwestern Women's Lacrosse Twitter account pointing out up to #2 in the country, highest ranking of the year, 18 straight Big Ten wins. That is a program record. And the head coach leading all those stats, Kelly Amonte-Hiller, kind enough to join us on Big Ten Today. Kelly, all of your teams, since you started as the head coach some 2 decades ago, have had talent, depth, and speed, but they also all have their own personality, right? So What's the personality of this particular group?
You know, I think this group is just a really special group. Obviously, we started off a little rocky in the beginning of the season, and I think this group is just so resilient. They really believe in what we're doing, and they're just having a lot of fun at what we're doing. We're really grateful for the opportunity to be together every single day, and they just really embrace who they are, and that's just an absolutely fun group that loves the game of lacrosse.
Now, Lauren Gilbert was on this show a few weeks ago. She comes off a 6-goal game against Hopkins, has 62 on the year. What makes her such an effective and dangerous offensive player?
Lauren Gilbert is one of the most hardworking players that we've ever had in our program. She commits to everything that she does, whether it be leadership or you know, her on the field play. She just works and works and works. She's very motivated to be the best. And I think this year she's really finding another level by just embracing the joy of the game and just playing free on the field. And so it's really fun to see her come into her own, and as well as some of the other fifth years in that same boat.
Kelly, I thought it was fascinating. She told us that she believes one of the reasons you've been so successful and one of the reasons that she found so much appeal in Northwestern is your willingness to recruit outside of traditional lacrosse hotbeds. She's Exhibit A from Lake Oswego, Oregon. Was that your approach right from the start, and how has it kind of evolved over the past 2 decades?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the player that maybe hasn't played a lot of lacrosse, or you know, they came to the game late. They came from a non-traditional area. We've had a lot of players like that in our programs. Some standouts have been Courtney and Ashley Custer from the class of 2005. Taylor Thornton, who was a Tewaaraton finalist. Those are just a few of them, and even, you know, in recent years, Lindsay McCone from Houston, Texas. So we love to find new areas, and obviously Selena Lasota as well from Vancouver Island. And usually when we find, you know, new people, then the coaches really start looking in those areas. So it helps. I mean, Lauren Gilbert's going to help the state of Oregon in terms of the recruitment and, you know, the attraction to college sports, just the ability for her to do it at this level. Selena helped Canada lacrosse quite a bit, and now you see a player like, you know, Aurora Cordingley for Maryland doing a fantastic job. So it's exciting for our game. That's something I really take a lot of pride in, and you know, something that we'll continue to do in our recruiting process.
So Lauren had an outstanding senior day. Same could be said for Jill Girardi. She had 15 draw controls against Hopkins. You start to look through the draw control stats. She averages more than 11 a game. There's nobody else in the league that is more than 7.5. How does that kind of set the tone for the way your team wants to play once you get control?
Yeah, it's obviously a key. You know, we do have quite a few very strong draw people in our conference, but Jill has really stepped up and, you know, just taken it to a whole nother level this year. Credit goes to my staff. Shelby Fredericks is really, you know, essential in that piece, and you know, our new volunteer assistant Jacqueline Moxley has been helping up quite a bit too. So it's really fun to kind of see her find a new level of confidence. And then, you know, behind her, we also have Brennan Dwyer and, you know, Sam Smith, a first year. So we have quite a bit of depth too that we can turn to if we need.
I mentioned the program record 18 straight conference wins heading into the Saturday date against Maryland, a chance for an unbeaten regular season. Now, no disrespect to the rest of the teams in this league because they're all really good, but you've had so many critical conference matchups with Maryland. How does that intensity kind of ratchet up when you guys see each other on the schedule?
Oh, it's awesome. I mean, you know, these are the types of games that, you know, you really dream about when you're a kid and you play for. And it's just a lot of fun to showcase this level of lacrosse. I'm sure we'll get a great crowd at Maryland. They tend to draw really well, and so that'll be a lot of fun for our players and for the Maryland players to really fight and battle against each other, and it'll be just a great showcase for our sport.
Kelly, your former teammate at Maryland, Kathy Reese, coaches the Terps. Another former teammate from that team, Missy Doherty at Penn State. But you now have former players on staffs, kind of, I'm guessing, across the country. Obviously, most notably, Hannah Nielsen, and this is hard to believe now, 5th year at Michigan. What's it like for you to watch former players evolve into coaching colleagues?
It's awesome. It's something that I really take pride in, my mentorship of my players, my student athletes. And then if they choose to give their passion a go as a profession, then, I want to see them be successful. And I'm always there for them if they have, questions or, difficult situations. I'm always there for them as a mentor. And it's just been really fun to see so many great coaches go into the business and just give the next generation of female student athletes in our sport a chance to really have the special experience that we had together.
All right, Kelly, I saved the hardest question for last. With the growth of the women's game since you took over, all the changes in college sports, not just women's lacrosse, but college sports as a whole, what's the biggest difference from your perspective from the start when this team first went varsity in 2002 to right now, 20 years later?
Wow, from 2002, there's so many differences. I think our game has really revolutionized itself. There's been a lot of rules changes to make our game way more attractive to the fans, to the TV audience. I don't think there's a better game out there right now than women's lacrosse. It's high scoring, it's fast paced, very skilled. There's good physicality, and I just think it's a really beautiful game. And you see, the West Coast has it now, so we're just hoping to continue to grow our game, showcase it, and we're super grateful that the Big Ten is a really big platform for us nationally to showcase our game on a weekly basis.
Well, I can tell you that it is, from personal experience, it is having an effect. My 5th grade daughter is playing right now for the first time, loving every bit of it. Doesn't really know what she's doing, but wants to dial in and watch when you guys are playing. So that's really all that matters.
Love to hear
Kelly
it.
Amonte-Hiller, women's lacrosse head coach at Northwestern. Kelly, we always appreciate the time.
Thank you so much. Go Cats.
And there's no doubt my daughter and I will be watching this weekend, Saturday, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central, Northwestern and Maryland women's lacrosse. You can see it right here on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. You can only see it right here on the Big Ten Network in the Fox Sports app. It's time for the big interview. Bret Bielema from Still Life to Real Life as we welcome in the Illinois head coach. Hey, Bret, I know you've already run a few scrimmages this spring with some full contact live tackling. What's been your big picture takeaway so far?
Obviously offensively we have a new OC, so the install and the implementation, but really just the overall learning that our kids have done. I think also our coaches, anytime you change OC, I retained all my other coaches. The way they've learned it for our coaches has been pretty impressive. And I'd say defensively, the one thing that's jumped out is we've really, through our first couple scrimmages, we've really tackled with some pretty good efficiency. So I really like to see, which is really the hardest thing to really gauge and get a barometer of where your team is at.
Well, Bret, you bring up the new OC. It's a name that may be new to some in Barry Lundy, but obviously a guy that you're very familiar with, worked with you at Arkansas, did great things as the OC and associate head coach at UTSA. What is his philosophy?
Rick, what I love about Barry is he's kind of grown up in this profession, but also as a player in a variety of different offensive influences. When we were together at Arkansas, we were a little bit more pro style, a little more old school, QB under center, huddle up offense, and then he's taken that and evolved during his times at other places, and then specifically at UTSA as the offensive coordinator. He had a term that I loved during our discussions where he basically said tempro, which it's a tempo offense with a pro-style influence. And that's been very clear, very evident to our guys. I think in today's world, everybody says, how are 18-year-old kids different now in 2022 than they were in 2002 or in 82, right? Like, I don't think kids are different. I think they're guided by the same principles. They want to be successful. They love to be coached if you get the right type of kids, but they are influenced by today's social media, right? The way they learn, the way they see video games. And Barry's done a nice job of blending that all together to create our offense here at Illinois.
Everybody wants to score. Everybody wants to be high tempo. I am curious, has it been hard to get a gauge of where the offense exactly is? I mean, Art Sitkowski's the presumed starter, I guess, presumed by the folks outside your program. He's not able to play right now as he recovers from surgery. Has that affected where the progression is?
I'm sure it has. Art hasn't been able to throw, but he's been able to be in our offense and be able to engage on the field literally every day after practice. The guy I'm jockeying for position behind the ball is Art Sitkowski every time. He's standing right behind the center, taking every rep, about 10 yards behind the ball. So he's taken a lot of reps through that visual. He's involved in our inside drill and our run game because he can't throw, but he can hand the ball off. So that's been good. I think Tommy DeVito transferred from Syracuse, Ryan Johnson, Samari Collier. There's been a lot of guys getting good quality reps, but I don't think that's really been a hindrance. I think our guys have just learned and moved forward. I really like the progress they've made. The truth will be in the pudding tonight in our game, just the ability for our offense to simulate as best we can a game day real life situation.
Bret, one of your staples as head coach, no matter where you've been, is to have a deep and talented running back room. This room includes Chase Brown, who returns as not just one of the top backs in the Big Ten, statistically one of the top backs in the nation. Overall, what does this room look like?
I'm liking where they're at, Rick, to be quite honest. Chase Brown, as you mentioned, our returning leader, statistically, but Josh McCray, he didn't even play in our first game against Nebraska, and then later on came in, got a little bit banged up during the year, but I think Josh McCray is a second-year player who's shown tremendous growth. Really excited to see him in our spring game. A guy that I recruited originally out of my time together at Arkansas, Chase Hayden, has had a very nice, productive spring. In addition to him, I had a couple of freshmen, Aiden Lawfrey and Jordan Anderson, two guys that literally have prom next week, are here in our program and enjoying their first semester of college. And then actually Nick Fidanzo has been a guy that has really been impressive in the opportunities that he's got. So we've got a good group in that core, right? A lot of good guys up front. I think from tackle to tackle, we've made a little bit of a jump in our overall depth and performance in the offensive line. And as a running back, that I know they love that as well.
Bret, I have to ask, because you bring up guys still eligible to go to prom. Meanwhile, because of this COVID thing, you also have guys who are old enough now to rent a car by themselves, who are probably turning 25 before football season even starts. Has that made it a little bit more difficult? Because as you well know, the difference from 17, 18 to 24, 25 is from a young man to a full-grown man.
A great point, Rick. One of the great wins we had for us in the out of season was to have two guys that potentially should be going on to the NFL. First was Mike Marquez, who's actually a guy that I switched from outside linebacker to tight end, a very valuable player for us a year ago, a tremendous young man, a lot of talent who will give us a lot of value as a tight end, an H, a U, and F, really does a lot for us on special teams. Really excited to have him come back for a bonus year the NCAA granted him. And then on the heels of that, I said, hey, he kind of has the same time frame as Alex Pachowski, who is our right tackle, who will go down in, I believe, in college football as one of the most career start leaders in the history of the game. And Palcho has been a huge asset for us, just leadership-wise, demeanor on the days of practice, but also on the days of non-practice. He just really gets it, understands it, and has been a great boy for us in the locker room.
I love it. Everybody's setting records these days with all these additional starts and the chances to play, which I think is great for student athletes as a whole. You brought up defense at the start of the interview, Bret. Year 2 for Ryan Walters as a DC after a season of massive improvement. You went from dead last 2 seasons ago to last year top 5 in points, top 5 in yards allowed, from 10th to 1st in pass defense. Those are giant jumps. So how can this unit get even better in 2022?
Well, I think just more familiarity. Really lost some good players. Obviously, Kirby Joseph, a guy that ended up being one of the best in the country. Our two edges, Owen Carney and Isaiah Gay, both really, really talented players, and lost some other players around them. But for the most part, have a good core coming back. Ryan Walters is exceptional in what he does, the leadership he provides at the coordinator position, but really our whole defensive staff stayed intact and just really impressed with the way they work. So I like the bond, the familiarity they have with their current players, and we've had some new guys rise to the top. A guy like Witherspoon, inside linebacker Tariq Barnes had a really, really good spring for us. Some guys up front, Johnny Newton, and a couple of the edge players have really developed. I'm excited where this group's at.
You know, most coaches will tell you that they are always behind in special teams, even if they have good returning punters and kickers. Now, in your case, I think it may be fair to say there may be no team in the country that has more to make up for in that particular element when you lose what you lose. So how do you guys address losing record setters at both special teams positions, punter and kicker?
Rick, it's a great point, and I use this, you know, everybody calls them coaching talk or coach speak, but it's reality, right? You always know you're going to graduate and lose players, but hopefully tradition never does. And I think the value that Blake Hayes, James McCourt, the value that they had, Ethan Tabell as our snapper, hopefully they set a precedence to the guys that return about what the standard needs to be. I love the way our specialists have worked. It's kind of been an evolution. Ben Miller, unfortunately, our tight ends coach, special teams coordinator, is going through a personal battle with cancer that has taken him away from us this spring. But a lot of guys have filled into those roles and done a nice job. So it's definitely a work in progress, and I think a challenge that our guys are willing to step up to. Through 12 practices, 13 practices now, I've been impressed with their demeanor and their work ethic, but we still have a lot of work to do.
All right, Bret, let's wrap up with this. Last year, you had a secret weapon for your spring game, and her name was Elise Menaker. She came in and threw an absolute dime, a bullet for a touchdown. What's up your sleeve for this week?
Well, that's why people got to tune into the game. That's why we're doing a Thursday night football game. I do know we're going to have some Big Ten Network representation, as well as a guest appearance, I believe, hopefully. So we'll kind of reveal that as they come. But Elise did set the stage last year for a standard that whoever steps into that role this year is hopefully going to be able to step up to the challenge.
I like it, keeping it close to the vest and building up the drama before Thursday night spring game, 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 in Champaign. Always great to catch up with Illinois head football coach Bret Bielema.